The Long Walk is the latest Stephen King adaptation, this time following a group of guys who have been selected to partake in the Long Walk, a contest held in this dystopian future where each contestant must walk at a pace of 3 miles per hour until there is only one remaining winner, granting them one wish and all the money they could have ever have wanted. That's all. Putting aside any spoilers, you guys, this will be a spoiler-free review. The Long Walk. You know what? Let's do this the right way. You like that view, huh? 'Tis a treadmill. Don't ask why it's dusty. Yeah, I'm one of those people who holds the bar on a treadmill. So what? Alright, I think this is better. The Long Walk. So Stephen King is a very popular name, not just now in books, but in movie form, because the guy has had zillion of movies made off of his books, and I thought I had known all the books he has written, but I had never heard of The Long Walk. It's apparently one of the first books he has ever written, and some of the most insane things I learned about that book in the research I did leading up to the movie is that in the book, the kids had to walk at a pace of 4 miles per hour, which right now I'm doing what the movie did, 3 miles per hour, and help me? Okay, this would be 4 miles? This is basically a light jog? Stephen King, you crazy thinking kids were gonna last days at this pace. But on paper, man, let me tell you, I feel like this is one of those stories that I'm surprised got made in book form and in movie form. Having a film entirely rely on just characters walking, the dialogue, and then the random things that could happen in between, I honestly would have felt like there is not much to tell there, and that maybe is better as a short story, or maybe like a quick 30-minute episode on Black Mirror, right? But watching that trailer, I was so instantly hooked, not just for the relatability factor, but no, many people watch the trailer and go, dude, I would easily win that. That is no problem. I even loved a lot of the marketing that they did where they actually held screenings of people watching the movie in its entirety while walking on treadmills. Unfortunately, they wouldn't kill people if they couldn't make it. They just escorted them out of the theater, which, come on, if you're gonna do it, go all the way with it. There's a guy off camera with a gun right now, ready to shoot at me once I get off. That's the dedication I bring here. All is to say, I went into the movie hoping just not to be bored with the premise after the 20-minute mark. And instead what I got was one of the best Stephen King adaptations put on film. I'm not exaggerating when I say I loved The Long Walk. Not this long walk. Starting off with some of the things I absolutely loved about this movie is the cast. Hang on, I gotta look up that actor's name. This was honestly such a great ensemble cast. We have Cooper Hoffman, who plays the main character, Raymond Garrity, and he volunteers for The Long Walk because he has a really specific wish in mind, and just his entire character arc and the things you learn about him, I found so fascinating. You also have Ben Wang, who we just recently saw in the new Karate Kid movie. He was very fun and enjoyable in this, but I think the actor that stole the show for me was David Johnson. I last saw him in Alien Romulus, where I loved his portrayal of Andy the android, and here he plays a character named Peter, who is just a delight, man. Anytime he is given the chance to talk, monologue, or go into his backstory, glued onto the screen. I'm very curious for the book readers who end up watching this movie, how much of the dialogue from the book ended up making it onto the screen. Because the screenplay adaptation is credited to J.T. Molnar, who did one of my favorite horror movies of last year, Strange Darling, and the dialogue and character interactions is really what is holding you over for the entirety of this movie, because the characters are walking the whole film. And as much as the movie can have fun with this character dying off first, or this situation occurring, like what happens when a character needs to pee, those little sprinkle of moments occur in the movie and they bump up your excitement and intrigue with the film so you're not bored with it, but it is still down to the dialogue and the interactions with these characters that have to keep you engaged throughout the course of the movie, and that's what this movie really nailed. Scene by scene and day by day, as these people are walking through the course, we are revealed little tidbits of other characters, the way the competition is starting to affect them mentally, physically, and all of that is paced at such a great way that you just never feel bored, never feel lost with the story. It's funny when a lot of people started seeing kind of the trailers for this movie, because then a lot of people were like, so it's basically Hunger Games but with walking, and they grabbed the Hunger Games director, Francis Lawrence, who must have used some of his experience in Hunger Games, not so much for like the action or thrills on screen, where there is thrills, but there is only so much you can do with characters walking throughout the whole film, compared to a Hunger Games movie where there's an arena of all sorts of things. But I do think there was a strength in grabbing a director whose job it is to figure out, okay, which character should go first, who has the sentimental moment, who's the a-hole of the group that everyone is just rooting for them to die, and making sure each one of those emotional punches actually hits. And that's another thing this movie does great. It is rated R. I honestly had thought it was like PG-13, and the first rated R moment of this movie kind of took me back by surprise. It's not that the film gets ultra-violent, gory, or excessive uses of blood, but whenever it does get to those rated R moments, they are used so effectively. You really get to feel the pain of certain characters, and especially when it came to those emotional moments, they actually were hitting really hard in this film, where I felt tears start swelling up in my eyes. As like an off-side hand note, I also love the Stephen Kingness of it all. There's a character in here that it was like, that's just ripped out of a Stephen King book. And I know that's obvious to say with it being it, but there is a certain feel certain Stephen King movies have. A lot of that is because Stephen King uses a lot of the same character tropes, like having an author or a writer being set in Maine. And there was a part of me kind of laughing, almost like a Marvel Easter egg pointing, going, that's a Stephen King trope. He found a way to put a Stephen King trope in a movie involving characters walking. Love it. But really, this was just such a satisfying movie because the premise it presents you, they 100% fall through on that promise and premise, which a lot of movies don't, man. Think about how many movies promised you some awesome, cool concept, and when you went to go watch it, you're like, this is not at all the movie you sold me. With The Long Walk, when you watch that trailer and you were like, okay, that looks cool, and you see the movie, it 100% delivers on what it promised. It's gonna give you those brutal moments, great character moments, heartfelt dynamic between the cast of characters. I really don't have many negatives for this film. I'm sure there are a couple of people who will nitpick certain things. I think mostly logistics. You know, the really smart, dorky people going, I just don't think that's logically possible. They could do this or do that without this. Maybe there'll be some people even arguing on the ending and the overall winner of the film, but I think at its core, it does such a great job with its metaphor, its commentary on society, and our favorite movie trope, the indomitable human spirit, which is really the biggest core of this movie. That will and want to keep going, just like me trying to finish this review, man. God damn, I'm still going. I guess if I had to be honest on the one thing I would have liked a little bit more of is Mark Hamill's character. He plays kind of the general and the person who runs the Long Walk, and you'll get plenty of backstory and information about his character through the main characters, even including one flashback sequence, but I kind of would have liked to have just spent some time where the camera was on Mark Hamill, shown us a little bit more of him than the picture that is painted from the characters. I mean, he is the villain. I'm not trying to say I would have liked his side of the story, man. Let's hear him out. He just felt like such a strong, good villain. I think a little bit more of him would have pushed him that extra mile to be great. That's honestly such a small, neither here nor there complaint. It does not affect my overall love of this movie. So when it comes to The Long Walk, I'm gonna give action 2.5 stars. Like I said, this is mainly characters just walking. They do enough intriguing things and get pretty brutal with some of the deaths, but you shouldn't go into this expecting this huge spectacle of action sequences. Comedy in the movie, I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. I feel like there was a really good balance of humor. There are definitely characters that are funnier than others, some kind of gross moments that are meant to lighten up the situation, but none of that comedy and humor ever compromises on the serious or emotional moments of the film. Drama in the movie, I'm gonna give it 4 stars. Although a pretty simple story, it was a lot of the character development and backstories, arcs, dynamics, things you learn about certain people towards the end of this film that I thought really wrapped up well its message and overall themes of this film. Suspense the movie, I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I was pretty much on the edge of my seat. I knew the movie had to end with one person being the winner. I didn't know who the winner would be, but also I didn't know who would be the next character that I've really grown to like be the next one to get killed. Horror in the film, I'm gonna give it 3 stars, man. I feel like there is definitely some unsettling, horrifying things that happen to certain characters, but it's also the mirror up to society and how though this fictional dystopian world could feel so relatable to some of the things going on today. When it comes to the 3 C's, I definitely think this movie can be enjoyed by all moviegoers, whether the casual cinephile or critic, but because of everything the movie does so well, I am I'm gonna give it the critic rating. So for The Long Walk, I think this deserves the 3C guarantee. I really had an outstanding time with this. I need to sit down and rank my Stephen King films, but I would not be surprised if this ends up in the top 5. Probably even top 3. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris.